Welcome, everybody. This is Denny with Why Is This True? And Get Wisdom now. And so I'd like to welcome everybody and welcome Carl. These videos now are going to be going over to our new website, GetWisdom.com. So you may have noticed the new introductions on the videos now, but we're going to continue with the channeling series, viewer questions for Creator. So thanks for joining me, Carl. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what we're going to do today for those people who are new to this series.
Thank you, Denny. It's a pleasure as always to be here and part of this process of bringing information forward, bringing new insights, new perspectives, and in particular, the blessing we have in being able to communicate directly with the divine realm. This is something people have dreamed about through the ages and yearned for. We all yearn for it because we come in disconnected and we start over having to relearn everything as a human being, language and how to be a person and the culture and all those aspects. And meanwhile, we do have past influences coming in intuitively into us, as well as divine support going on, but we don't know it intellectually for the most part. So this is an amazing opportunity to shed some light on the rough spots in our culture, in the world. And so we're in earnest here to find out the big truths, and especially to help humanity. And we see tremendous need. Everyone knows there's problems. Everyone knows there's inequalities and suffering. But few know there's a deep, dark reason behind that. And what I found in wanting to help people with emotional issues, in getting training as a hypnotist, which led me to really become conversant with the subconscious and ways to reach that deep level of the mind, I was also able to begin exploring things hypnosis have been used for a long, long time. Past life regressions, some of the metaphysical applications, including the realm of channeling. And one of the things I learned along the way was being able to channel dark spirits in people. And to my shock, I found this is really common. It's almost universal, and it's a huge reason for all the negativity going on. Dark spirits have corrupted us and the extraterrestrials who are here in the physical. None of them can be trusted because they have all been corrupted by this dark influence. And this is what the Bible and other scriptural documents around the world have pointed to again and again, that something's not right. And it's called different things. But the whole idea of Satan and evil is coming from that source. We're essentially an extension of the divine. We're part of Creator's consciousness, in fact. So along the way, I bumped into this again and again and again. And now I'm working full time helping people with this scourge personally. Spirit corruption by removing them, and extraterrestrial involvement, and undoing the karmic interplay and some of their handiwork, removing subconscious programming, implants, and this sort of thing. It's much more common than people believe. 1 out of 20 people are abducted repeatedly during their lifetime. 1 out of 20. That's a huge number of people. It's millions and millions and millions of people. Some never return. Some come back and are serving their program in various ways through manipulation. It's very, very unpleasant and unhappy. So we're going to have a session today where I channel Creator of all it is. And this is the most tremendous blessing I've had in my life personally, to be able to be in a position where I can do this and have an uncorrupted way to talk with the Creator of the universe. The reason this is possible is because Creator does care about us. He's very concerned about the human project. I use the word he, don't feel offended. It's a dual energy of the divine masculine and feminine, just to pay my respects there. But creator is the term I use because using the G word these days offends a lot of people.
Yeah.
The Muslims like Allah, and if it's not Allah, it's not real. If they don't like the G word, and the New Age people think God is old fashioned and old hat, and
it's interesting too, because when God refers to him or herself, the pronoun is we. Is that correct? It's we.
Yes.
Yeah.
Typically, yes.
Yeah.
And you see, it's a recognition of the unity of life is really what it is. There is the ultimate authority that is that creator consciousness, but that now includes everything in the universe, ourselves as well as many other civilizations of beings. And we're literally extensions of that consciousness. So we're part of the very makeup and body of creator. This sounds blasphemous to most people, but that's because they've been misled to make people feel they're unworthy. We're really not. We can do crazy things, and we can lower ourselves and get dragged down through being corrupted and thrown off track. But that is really our origin, and the connection's always there. So creator is within each and every person. There's no separation. It is totally connection in every respect, because the very life force that animates the person is flowing from God, from creator. And that is a gift. But it's a gift to creator's self, literally, as well. So we're out here kind of on the edges as sort of like the advanced explorer portion, trying out new things and sometimes goofing around and sometimes making mistakes and hopefully learning from them. But the idea is to grow and expand. And creator's doing that through us in part, as well as many other living beings and everything else as well, which has consciousness.
And we're in the free will human experiment right now. Yeah.
That's right. And there is a grand future for us that has been shown to me, and I've done channelings about this. And there is a tremendous potential for humanity far beyond what we ever have experienced here as physical beings on the earth. And it's because of our divine nature. When we're here as a human currently, we come into a faulty culture, a faulty civilization in faulty bodies. The actual physical apparatus of humans has been altered by extraterrestrials to dim us down, dumb us down. And then it's further bombarded with mind control manipulation and everything else negative that they can stir up, encouraging companies to put poisonous things in food that they think will be helpful, preservatives and colorants and on and on and on. And we give it a blind eye to risk because, we just don't worry about it. Well, that is because we're manipulated to not take things seriously and to be complacent. We accept so many things that are lopsided and actual cruelties. And we just think of it as, well, that's just the way it is.
The way it is, right.
And if we didn't have this overlay, we'd be up in arms. We would be a force to reckon with, and no one would get away with things. They'd be called on the carpet. Do we really have to put poison in the food to get an extra week shelf life? Maybe we just need to be smarter, maybe use some of that technology to have a more available on demand sort of enterprise in the food supply chain and so on, But this has been our history. So we come down, we can't connect very well to our higher self or to the divine realm. And so our guidance is a little bit tentative. And we feel estranged. We don't feel the reality of the divine because of that relative disconnection. It's not total, but it's enough where we don't have a sense, most of us, that God is out and about and we're a part of something grander. The lucky few who still have a good intuitive reach know this and they feel it. And people who can channel, like myself, have an extra blessing in being able to establish communication. But even that is not easy because the interlopers are out and about too. And if someone pops up into the ether with their intuitive outreach to talk to an angel or an ascended master or something, the extraterrestrial psychics will know it. And they will come and answer and start talking to that channeler. And that starts a relationship going. And the channelers just proceed without realizing they're talking to an imposter. This has been going on all through human history. And it's responsible for a lot of the hard to explain negative things in the Bible. You know, when the words of God were quite harsh, quite judgmental, and quite arbitrary in many ways. That wasn't God speaking. I'm sorry to the biblical literalists out there. Those were corrupted prophetic messages coming through false receivers.
Right. And we have more modern day examples of the same thing.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
So most channelers are talking to imposters. It's sort of like they all get a babysitter. And then their little babysitter, their nanny, keeps them playing with their crayons and, watching the cartoons on TV, but won't tell them things about grown-up issues and help them really solve problems. And will never talk about these dark aspects and influences and reveal the inner workings.
Right.
If they do, it's maybe to implant fear, but without an answer, without a solution.
Right. And the alien agenda is a good example. The alien agenda itself is a good example of what's excluded from a lot of these, these discourses or these channelings or these channelers and their body of work and stuff. And you go and you look at it, and it's like you'd said in the past, a lot of the spiritual kind of like kindergarten stuff, but they don't really get to talking about, what's going on Earth and what humans can do about it. Like the alien agenda itself is a great example of something that's just not talked about. You won't find it there. It's talked about in terms which are mostly just either, pointing someone in the wrong direction in terms of how that works in a person's worldview, or like you say, fear, or just kind of like a non-issue, like just something's there, like the benevolent ET narrative is a good example.
Yes. This is part of the programming, that if there are ETs out there, they're way more advanced than we are. So they naturally have already learned how to avoid war, and they're smart, they're accomplished,
they're spiritual.
They're spiritually advanced, and they know how to live with having things in balance and to not cause problems. And so they will have taken care of things like crime and inequality and prejudice and so forth. And nothing could be farther from the truth, because the reality is that these extraterrestrials who are here, first of all, are all atheists. They all have an atheistic culture. It is entirely hierarchical, based on personal power of their leaders. And that model has been imposed on us all through our history. So we do the same thing. We set up leaders, and then we follow them, and we give them the power, and like the monarchies and so forth. That's how these civilizations run. So when an imposter, through a channeling, gives divine wisdom, which they dispense regularly, they're feeding back to us ideas that have come from the divine through the people who are open and aware. And they collect them as sort of like the myths of humans, the silly beliefs of humans. And they have a whole catalog of these. And so they can dole those out to newcomers and rework them and refashion them to make them sound original and so on. But they view the whole idea of a God force as how we know Santa Claus to be. It's a nice idea to have, fun with, and especially for the young.
Yeah.
But it creates a nice holiday that we can show concern for others and gifts and so forth. And
a force in the world to take the onus off of us. Relieves us of the responsibility for, doing our own housework.
Right. So they're quite expert on our religious mythology, but that's how they view it. So when you hear anything like that from them, they're only giving you what they think is our self-deluding propaganda that we have generated. So we can't look to them for leadership, assistance, or any kind of guidance in any real way that will be beneficial. Yes, they have technologies we don't. But the price to pay in having access is losing our souls.
Yeah.
And our very lives.
Yeah, freedom and our souls, right.
Yeah. Because at the moment, what we are hearing from Creator is the agenda has been shifting. And this is a somewhat recent development where they're getting tired of this project of minding all these crazy people, and they want to be done with it, some of them. And that could end with the annihilation of humanity altogether. Sorry to be so blunt about this. But that's the reason, really, Denny and I are here. This is not just some exercise of our curiosity, wanting answers. And so we want to know about all the secret alliances with the extraterrestrials by the military and the government. So we understand all the little things and pieces that have gone on. And we want the goodies, we want the free energy, and we want to have trips to the moon and Saturn and spacecraft. We can zoom out there in an hour.
After all, the theme of the current 5 generations is entertainment. After all,
yeah, there you go.
So we're not climbing onto that bus. We're not taking that train. We're doing something else, and I'm glad you pointed that out.
Well, they're dangling that out in front of us now, and what I've told is they're going to come out of the closet. They're already working on this. There's more and more people coming forward who have been part of these programs, and they're true believers. And the reason they're true believers is they're under mind control. They are manipulated to believe the cover story that this is a beneficial undertaking. They're here to help. And they also know there are bad doings. And so part of the cover story is, well, there's good ETs and bad ones, and you need the good ETs to reckon with those bad ones, because you can't do it on your own. So you need us. You need the good guys. That's how it's going to be sold. It's already underway, and it's going to grow. There's going to be a drumbeat. And I'm also told one of the things that's going to happen is when they really start this rollout, all the channelers are going to start hearing about how this is a wonderful new advent of rescue by benevolent extraterrestrials. They're here to help.
Yeah.
We need to embrace them and trust them to help run things.
And some of that has started already too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what I'm told by Creator is, if the majority of humanity believes that message and decides to support these extraterrestrials just with their thoughts and their intentions, the game is over. There's no hope for humanity, and the divine realm cannot help us then, because we have made the wrong choice, and this is do or die here. That's the purpose of the enterprise. Can we stand strong in spite of corruption all the mistakes that build, the consequences of the bad things coming back around as karmic repetition that we now have in our face, and it's grown in intensity. This is what karma does. It's a huge liability for all the negative stuff that we do. So all of that is a legacy. And now we have this new culmination of all the subjugation and oppression through thousands and thousands of years with the extraterrestrials really running the world. And if they come forward and dangle this prospect in front of us, and we side with them visibly, intentionally, it's going to be our undoing. So that's why we're in earnest here, right. Denny and I, and wanting to help shed light. So we'll hear some questions about that agenda, I think, among the mix today. I don't remember what they are. I did get a look at them last night, but
it runs the gamut. Sorry?
Okay. We might get questions like that, and that's the reason, because we have been talking about this. And then there's so many other voices that have an opposite message. And I can't help that. It is what it is. So, you guys watching have to make up your own minds and take a stand here one way or another. And all I would say is, if you choose to be passive, you're siding with the darkness. That's my perspective. So think about it carefully. And all Creator is asking of us is to pray for humanity, because that is taking a stand. That is deciding what you personally want to see happen. And if enough people choose that, Creator has the ability to see to it that all of this extraterrestrial and dark spirit subjugation will come to an end. It's up to us now, and that's the test of us. Can we make a final push with the shift in consciousness so we walk out into the sunlight and not into the dark of night with those who would drag us down to, a final solution?
Okay.
Of theirs.
Right. Their solution. Okay. Well, so
welcome to
Carl and Denny's Disneyland. Yes. So, but again, there's an answer to this, and that's the reason we're here. If we didn't have an answer to this, I'm not sure that we would be here. But we do have an answer to this, and it's a partnership with Creator. It's knowing where we are, the circumstances that we're in, and then employing that offer of partnership. And it's the prayers. It's the fact that we can't do this alone, but we have to do it. So this isn't something this isn't not appeal to savior mentality. This is an appeal to self-responsibility in the partnership with Creator. So that's a very important distinction, because one of the accusations that we get from time to time is that we're just substituting God for a benevolent ET, and that's not what's going on here. We have to realize that benevolent ET is not our Creator. Creator is our Creator. Creator is the one that's offering the partnership. Creator is the one that has the power to actually do something about the problem that we're in. But we have to ask for Creator's help. So that's the message here, is that if we ask for Creator's help, then we can do something about this. Otherwise, what you and I would be doing probably wouldn't be very honorable. Just, talking about a bunch of bad news and stuff that we don't have any power to do anything about. But we do have a power to do something about it, and that's part of the message here. So today we have 10 questions. I think this might be the 7th or 8th viewer questions for Creators channelings that we've done. I'm not very good at keeping track of that. But with 10 questions, it'll be a long session. And so with that, Carl, I'd like to ask you to go ahead and get started. We'll get started with the questions.
Okay, it'll just take me a minute or two to get into the state of consciousness that I need to make the connection and to put the safety measures in place that I always use in reaching out intuitively. And this is what people need to do, whatever it is, even meditation. You need to ask Creator, the divine realm, the highest, holiest source you believe in, to keep you safe. Very, very important. So we'll put protection around the work because we obviously need to have an authentic voice that comes through.
Right.
Okay. This is Source Creator speaking.
The first question is from Mike P. Do humans receive bad karma for eating animals?
This is not the case unless there is mistreatment of the animal in some way above and beyond the taking of the life. These creatures were produced as a source of food for one another as well as humans. So there in nature is a hierarchy of dominance, and the predators feed off the prey, all of which is entirely natural and a deliberate orchestration of natural balance to provide food for all and a way to survive and thrive. So humans as well are predators more than prey by virtue of intelligence and technology. And so they have the capability of utilizing many types of living things as nutrient. This is part of the natural order and has no karmic penalty per se. When animals are subjected to cruelty through factory farming type conditions where they are caged and never have fresh air or natural light or freedom of movement, this is highly unnatural and stressful as well. And there is a karmic payback in the discord of consciousness imbued in the foodstuff, and the consumption will cause problems for humans as a result. There may also be other forms of repayment from a karmic debt of carrying out acts of cruelty in the production of food, in the slaughtering of animals, in the housing conditions and transportation. If this is not done humanely, there is a karmic debt. And this increases continually with continuation of the practice. There is, in addition to that, a karmic debt to all who consume such products, whether they know about what happens behind the scenes or not. This is the way karma works. If you break the law, ignorance of the law is no excuse. This is the way human jurisprudence is organized, and for good reason. There must be a reason to become conversant, and there must be often a consequence or penalty which encourages people to learn the rules first before they make mistakes and make a transgression of some kind. But even in situations of total ignorance, there is a karmic consequence for everything that happens, wittingly or unwittingly. So this means that there is a burden on each and every human to pay attention to how things are done at all levels. What goes into the manufactured goods they use? Is it exploitation of slave labor? in a third world country where people are deprived of basic necessities and living under cruel oversight and horrible conditions that will effectively constrain them to the point that even future lifetimes will be impaired until much of this harm has been healed in some way. This karmic legacy extends through the products to the purchaser and the end user. This is why everyone has a stake in everything that happens. You are all interconnected, and the unity of human includes the divine. If you harm another person, you are harming all people, and that karmic sharing will have consequences. The use of meat in and of itself is not karmically a negative. There is more likelihood that animals are harmed by harsh conditions than plants. So the decision to be a vegetarian will sidestep any exposure to karmic consequences of the meat that is not consumed to some extent. But there is still a karmic burden of being a human nonetheless, because in making that choice, you are also opting out of your responsibility for those animals that may be abused along the way. So you are not off the hook. Whether you eat the meat or not, you are responsible for the pain of every other living thing that takes place directly or indirectly to some degree. So there is no escape for you being here. You are your brother's keeper and your sister's keeper in a karmic sense. In a functional sense, there is a limit to the amount you can share without depriving the self. That is not a requirement. You can save your life at the expense of another. That is basic soul management. One survivor and one dead victim is better than two dead sharers of misery. That is not overlooking the value of life or favoring one or over another and honoring virtue over the reality of existence. One can carry obedience to even divine principles to a fault and go down with a ship unnecessarily. If one can be saved or save oneself, that may be a good thing. So it is difficult to parse all of this with great precision. Every individual has an individual path and exposure. What we are simply pointing out is there are many, many involvements and karmic entanglements with everything that happens around you. And few people are aware this happens, but you are in this whirling of energies and you have a karmic connection to a vast number of issues beyond your day-to-day life.
Okay, thank you. Next question is from Karen G. Does time spent in the lower astral plane diminish karmic debt in any way?
One who is human often thinks of crime and punishment together. This is a very well ingrained principle of human experience that is universally shared. This is because of ignorance and the suppression of ideas and the imposition of the perspectives of extraterrestrial taskmasters who see things this way themselves. Things are done through force and not reason. The appeal is to the desire for revenge, the satisfying of anger in response to the unfair treatment that may be received at hands of another. All of these notions are non-divine. They have their practical utility, but we will not defend them to you. The way people end up in lower astral plane is through many, many types of hurdles and difficulties, many of the person's own choosing. So being trapped in between planes of existence may well have karmic causes. And in that respect, it may constitute the repayment of a karmic debt of some kind, a rebalancing of energy, much as you would think of as incarceration paying back society for a theft or even the taking of a life. That is the best that can be done as humans. And this, we would say, is the best karma can do for beings in the human physical plane. There is a semblance of energetic equivalence between imprisonment in the lower astral plane, deprived of all sensation, which includes all forms of pleasure, and the paying back of a debt for serious wrongdoing, which deprived pleasure for perhaps many others. This is not decided by divine realm. It is decided by the human and what they do from day to day. This is not the preference of divine realm to be a mechanism to service karmic debt. The orderly way to do this is to return to the light, to have some rest and recuperation, time away from the battlefield, so to speak, not to be lost in limbo, being continually tormented and deprived of any progress. This is a very, very large negative to the soul in all respects. And in fact, it is an experience that far outweighs any human wrongdoing that might happen. And that includes the killing of other people. When someone is killed, they return to Creator's arms and experience love beyond measure. It is in many ways more a blessing than not. To be sure, there is pain for the survivors who are deprived of their friend or loved one. But the grievousness of the crime pales in comparison to the reality of existence, which is that you are all immortal. And there are no problems of great seriousness. Being trapped in between planes is a major crime against the soul. You may choose to inflict that on yourself. But when it comes at the hands of interlopers, in particular dark spirits, who descend on a person who is leaving their body at the moment of death, and so distract them, they are unable to see and cooperate with the light callers who would take them home to where they truly belong. That intervention is a heinous act of the highest magnitude. This is a typical scenario. So this, in most cases, is coming through a force of evildoers and not through the choice of the person directly. People may make choices that result in their being more vulnerable, and then these things can happen more readily. It is no different than any other weakening of the self, and then seeing something take place unexpected, but actually a logical extension of possibilities. For example, drinking to excess and attempting to drive home. The choice was made, and the impairment causes, in some cases, a catastrophe. So a life spent in difficulty without an earnest attempt to heal will lead a person in a downward spiral and increase the chance they will not progress and will not return to the light even. So in a sense, they are setting themselves up for this eventuality. But it would not happen without the effects of the interlopers making things much, much worse. So this is a complex subject, but the quandary of human in dealing with these very forces is a problem needing a solution. And it only exists because humans have not solved the dilemma of their existence. This is the challenge for humanity right here and right now. Will you continue to be complacent, living in ignorance of this source of evil? Or will you take action and enlist divine help? That is the ultimate answer. And then the problem will largely disappear.
Okay, thank you. Next question is from me, Denny. In previous channeling sessions, it was stated that we have it backwards. We should celebrate death and be mournful about birth. So with that in mind, how can we prepare ourselves upon death to recognize and meet the light callers to avoid becoming an earthbound spirit?